Okay, welcome everybody to the last Davis Island for the season. It's kind of hard to believe. We will have a couple people jumping on as well. Kristen, I was just thinking maybe I'd have you jump in real quick and talk about where you're going to be to get data downloaded for the charted sails, and get anyone to grab the trackers. So if you want to jump in, Kristen, real quick, and we'll start with that.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for having me back on, and excited to provide some tracking data for everybody. We've got 5 trackers that will be available, so that if you don't have a Velocitech or another device, we can slip one of these things on your boat. It also allows you, if you have a coach with you, to be able to view the stuff in real time and see how your performance is coming along. So if you want a tracker, shoot me. I'll put my cell phone number, my email address in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me. And then, of course, anybody who's got a Velocitech, a Race Geek, any of those tracking tools, if you want to find me either before or after the day, I can pull your data down. So you'll find me underneath the club. I've got 2 little posters, so you'll know where my table is. My computer will be set up, and if you want to drop it off, it doesn't take very long for me to pull the data down, so we can meet in the morning or in the afternoon. I'll be there, a little after 8 tomorrow, and certainly, after all the boats come in tomorrow afternoon. And the same thing on Sunday. I'll be there in the morning and in the afternoon, so we'll have data for the debrief down the road, as well as giving you all access to that information so that you and your teams can look at it whenever you'd like. To that end, anyone who wants to spend a little extra time, I'm more than happy to offer up a 30 to 60 minute one-on-one session with any team that wants to look at that data and learn how they could be using it effectively themselves. You don't have to have a coach looking at it. It's pretty easy to interface with, but it's always good to have a guide your first time through it, and happy to walk anybody through that information going forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. So that's definitely valuable information that everyone, should take advantage of it, because I think this is a great opportunity. So this is kind of a pre-brief more than a debrief. Even though we did have a great day on the water, there's some things that we want to just talk to you guys about so we can get things on the water, this weekend. And the 2 things that we want to talk about today, and Willem, I think Mike talked to you a little bit about maybe getting some footage of this, but is the wing situation. So we do have some video we'll show today, but jibing to wing, jibing the kite to wing, jibing the kite out of wing, jibing the main out of wing, the different scenarios. That's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And so this weekend, we'd like to get more of that. So if we could, I think Mike talked to Willem about maybe working with them in the morning, just going out to do those scenarios, to look at them and to see what's going on. So Roy has these going on. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and we try to just do, a couple things and not, overwhelm, because it is a lot of great information, is the weather mark and coming in, where you can come in on Port Ley line, and some of the things we've all learned. I've learned both in doing it myself, as well as from coaches and some of the pro sailors that I've talked to, is where to come in, to that weather mark. And, with 19 boats, it's a lot easier to practice this with less severe consequences. But you'll see in some of these examples from last event where we had 28 boats, it's a lot more critical. And as we get ready to go into North Americans and Worlds, and even Charleston Race Week, where we'll have more like 40 boats, where you come in on the ley line is huge. So I'm going to first just ask anyone I'm happy to have a small group talk, so you can talk and just put your, talk about this first. But anything that you guys want to do this weekend for us to get video of, let me know. So someone want to chime in on anything else this weekend for us to work on video wise, please speak up. Anyone have anything different? Okay. Nobody has anything different. What I would like to do, and I know Willem is on here. Willem, can you talk to us about wing? And let's see, Roy, what's the first video you have going into wing or out of wing?
It looks like we have a Gybing the spinnaker over.
Willem, can you talk about this and why this is good or bad, and what you prefer, in this scenario? This is maybe not the, this team is the end of the day, so but Willem, you'll just talk about this and why this is
Sure.
a scenario you go to.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons to jibe the kite to wing. Let's say you round the weather mark and you're getting headed and you decide you should be going into wing. Well, we don't want to jibe the main because then we'll be sailing on a lift. So we want to continue sailing on the header. So bearing off and jibing the kite to wing would be keeping you in the header, but sailing in wing, which we think is faster in a lot of conditions. So you're taking care of the shift, protecting the group that's in front of you. Let's say a couple boats round in front and you go jibe the kite to wing. Jibing the kite to wing actually makes more sense a lot of the time to most teams, just because we put the weight to weather, we rotate the kite quickly. The driver has to turn a little faster. The driver does not switch sides, and we bear off, trim the kite, really rotate the kite, trim it on hard till the kite pops. And once the kite pops, we can head up 20-ish plus degrees and easing the sheet and keeping that weight to weather. If that made sense.
Yeah, it does. Willem, also tell me, this is the same thing, but I've heard you talk about this where you get stuck and you have boats above you and you didn't have a choice. And so you use the wing to get separation.
Yeah, so, you have to determine whether you have the space to wing. And the closer the boats are behind you, let's say you set and we decide we want to go to wing. If the boats are very close behind us, it's a little risky going into the wing because let's say you bear off, jibe the kite to wing. Well, now you're in their dirt longer than if you jibe the main to wing. And jibing the main to wing is you're in their dirt longer than if you were to do a full jibe. So the closer those guys are, the more aggressive of a turn you need to make to get yourself in clear air. If they're right behind you, maybe the move is to do a full jibe, get some speed, cross their breeze quickly, and then bear off and jibe the kite to wing, if that's the shift you want to play.
Hey, Willem, it's Kristen Berry. I've got a question for you.
Hey, Kristen. Yeah.
So, when we jibe the kite to wing, can you talk about how you would coach a trimmer to sheet the sail? So we've got the kite stabilized. Now we're coming up, trying to sail as high on the main as possible. I noticed that a lot of folks who are trimming the kite tend to be holding it with their outboard hand, which is kind of pumping with the sail, which to me seems inefficient because a lot of the energy is being translated through their arm rather than directly to the boat. Can you talk about how you're making sure that all of the energy that's in the kite's getting to the boat to drive it down?
I mean, I think most trimmers, if they get it down right, I think they should be stronger than the sail is. Unless, until it's hitting maybe 15-ish knots, 14 knots. I mean, I try to actually, right when the sail's getting loaded, I try to anticipate that and fight it. But I like holding it there. Some people say, well, if it went right back to the block, for one, the sheet isn't as far out. And then, I think it's better. So, Carlos, I'm here. Sorry, I can hear myself and like an echo, so I was struggling there. But so I don't think it's a problem. I'm holding it between my legs. I'm holding it with let's say I'm on starboard wing with the kite on the right side. I'm holding the sheet with my right hand, I'm trying to keep my body as far out being still legal. And then I'm holding the sheet through the blocks with my left hand, kind of between my legs.
Yeah, got it.
So I have the ratchet to help me at any point if I struggle. And I have my right arm to either raise it if I want to sail higher in the wing, or when I get flat water and sail deep, I can choke up on it more and hold the clew lower. So that's kind of the trick. Is with practice, you're able to sail maybe anywhere from DDW to, I mean, sure, you can go by the lee, but going by the lee in wing is very slow. So you want to avoid that, except at a marker or a finish for a very short period. But you have, you want to be able to sail quite high in the wing and then sail almost DDW. Those are kind of the range.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Willem.
Sure. So you can see in the picture, both with Willem and then here with Will Felder, you know, you're watching their hand go up and down and control the sail. And so they're not just, you know, they're active in what they need to do. And Willem, is that a good, you know, answer? Is you're going to be active with your up and down to trim the sail, but still trying to keep it out always though.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it out as far as possible. You know, I try to look up at the Windex maybe every 5-6 seconds, just so I can keep especially here in Davis Island, it was so shifty today. It was quite difficult in the wing because there were kind of 40-50 degree shifts. So you really had to focus on the Windex. And I'm also looking down through the finish line or the leeward mark and make sure I'm on the headed jibe, because it's so quickly shifting. You want to keep yourself pointing at, you were trying to shave distance, take distance off, you know, sail less distance. And that's the way to do that, is keep pointing at the mark. So sometimes we get lifted and the move might be a full jibe or jibe out of wing and then jibe the kite back into wing. So we're back on the headed jibe.
Okay. And then does anyone have any questions for Willem on that real quick?
For the transition into wing, is there anything that you do to help? So if you're driving specifically the spinnaker, is there anything you do to help the spinnaker fill faster, rocking the boat or pumping or anything of that nature?
So I think the best advice I can give is having really crystal clear communication. So let's say we're on starboard, both sails on the left side. I might say, turning left quickly. Rich, you're going to stay on the same side. We're jibing the kite to wing. And so he knows he's going to stay on the same side. He's going to turn left quick. I'm going to rotate the kite very quickly. Weight is going to go to weather. Rich is going to keep turning, go by the lee. We're going to over trim the sheet and it's going to pop. And the breeze is going to fill the entire sail all the way to the clew. And then Rich is going to head up and I'm going to ease the sheet. I'm going to say, turn right, and I'm going to ease the sheet.
Do you tell him to stop his turn? Yeah. Do you tell him to stop the turn?
Stopping the turn is pretty much when the kite pops. A lot of drivers will turn down, down, down. They think they're deep enough, and the kite, the luff of the foot of the kite is just shaking. The whole sail's shaking, shaking, shaking. And we have to keep turning more by the lee, more down until the whole sail pops. So that's kind of his sign that he's turned enough. And the jibing the kite to wing has to be a much faster turn than the jibing the main to wing.
Yeah, and so that's a little more difficult because of that.
Yeah, it looks like this video here is a good example of that, of just not quite steering fast enough. We'll give them a pass because they were done with the racing for the sailing in, but it's still a good example of that.
Yeah, so Laura just didn't turn deep enough there. And maybe the trimmer could have saved it by really easing the sheet. I think he kind of saved it a little bit, but it probably would have been better had she just had Scott just kind of over trim there and Laura turned a little deeper and it would have popped. Like, it's still luffing. She needs to turn down a little bit. And now she's turning down. Now Scott's saving it by easing the sheet. But instead of him easing the sheet, she should have just turned down till it popped and then turn up and ease.
Yeah, and I think that's where Willem's talking about the communication, you know, and so he's talking to his driver the whole time. And and of course, in this situation, Laura's probably her first or second day in at J70.
Okay.
So, working together to just keep communication the whole time is huge. And now you're giving the signs. So like where Willem's saying, Rich knows when it pops. Well, he's trained enough that Rich now knows that's the sign to then straighten out. And I think those are the factors I think that are pretty important. So really good ones. Thank you, Willem. That's awesome.
Sure. Happy to help.
Advice. I think that's huge. So that's great. Anyone else have any questions on this? Okay, Roy, is there another one we want to look at, or we want to move to the other scenario?
We'll probably have a lot of discussion on the windward mark rounding, and I think this also today we didn't get a ton of video today.
Yeah.
So this is more talking about what we're going to be going over the next debrief. So I say we.
Yeah, perfect. So we're going to move on to the weather mark, and this is some great drone video that's going to show a lot of things. So as you're watching, we're coming up to the weather mark. This is last event, so there's 28 boats. So this is a little more accurate scenario, but still not as much as you'll see at like North Americans or Worlds. So the big question, and this is what's come up, we've talked about this a lot, or I have talked about this with some guys a lot, is coming into the weather mark on port ley line. And you can see the boats coming in, really close to ley line, but they're leading. And so obviously that's not as big of a deal. It's that next batch of boats that you'll see come in and what they have to do. And, think about a double the amount of boats here or even more. And so one of the scenarios we've talked about, and I know Bill Hardesty was one of the ones that shared this, the more specific numbers was, you really want to kind of come in at 5 to 7 boat lengths in a 60 boat fleet or more. Now, if you're in a fleet like this week, coming in at 2 to 3 boat lengths where you may only have to drop it down into the 3rd to 4th boat length, it is a little easier. But when you have 60 boats, that's not something that can happen. So as you watch this play out, you'll see what happens here. You got a boat right on ley line. So he's now, look where he's ducking multiple boats. And so that's pretty painful to set up. And in Davis Island, you can get a huge ship, so you got to be careful. But you also don't want to be stuck at 20 boat lengths coming in on the starboard ley line. So let's just watch this play real quick and see what happens, and then we'll go over that. I'm not sure who this is, but it doesn't really matter. But you say they were potentially leading, and now they ducked 3 boats. And then what's also interesting is now that they're coming in and coming around, look at where they ducked the 3rd boat. And now look how much farther they're behind that 3rd boat. They're almost 2 full boat lengths behind them. So they went from being potentially the lead boat to being the 4th place boat. And if they would have been further out, I think they would have been in a better position to leave bow and come in, or get ahead. So think about this when you're coming to the weather mark, that try to avoid the 3 boat length circle, but be it 4 or 5 boat lengths in a fleet like this, but maybe 5 to 7 boat lengths in a big fleet. So we'll keep this playing and look at some other scenarios here.
Before we move on to the next scenario, another small thing about execution here is that I think if they had ducked earlier, if they had realized, hey, we don't have a hole, we should start ducking earlier, then they wouldn't have had to make as sharp a turn when they tacked, and they would have had more speed out of their tack. And that would have helped with that 2 boat length gap behind the boat that was in front of them. So if you look here, they're almost parallel in the wrong direction to the boats that are on starboard ley line.
Yeah, so that's a late duck rather than an early duck. And that late duck, they have to do almost a 180 turn.
And you see how fast they're turning here, it just kills their speed. So, and maybe they were holding off because there was another boat that tacked in there a little late. So maybe they thought there was a chance they had a hole, which is something. It's not nothing. Right here, they might still think they have a hole.
But in a 60 boat length boat fleet, that could be going from, instead of first to fourth, first to 10th, 15th, even more.
Yeah.
And I think if we keep this playing a little more, you'll see another scenario like this that maybe turned out a little more painful. Go ahead and keep rolling. You see the first boat could have been the first boat, and instead they're the fourth boat. It's not crowded yet. Of course, with 28 boats, not as crowded as you have at 60 boat. So the short courses we're doing are trying to create these scenarios to help you guys better off, you know, in the big fleets. So you have a boat.
Was it a different video?
It might have been a different video. A good explanation of someone that came in a little bit later. You know, if you're coming in more the 7th, 8th place, where, you know, kind of the top guys normally can get away a little more because they've got some space. Here we go. So you can see the boat's ducking, you know, and they're almost going backwards. So see this boat coming at us, almost going backwards. They're ducking, and watch, this is 1523. They're ducking Bruno, and then they turn.
Here, I'll go back.
Yeah.
We'll watch them.
So watch the red gear. We're going to back up and watch the red gear. So they're coming in on port ley line. They're actually probably in the 5 boat length, but maybe that's not too much. And but what hurt them is the 2 boats above them. So the 2 boats above them went backwards, which then pinned her out. Now, when she comes around right here at the bottom of our screen, she has to turn really quickly. And you watch all the weather boats get above. Now here, look where she's aiming right now. And she tried to aim above the mark and almost didn't make it because she didn't have flow. And so what's important is when you come out of your tack, you don't have to aim for the mark necessarily, as you aim lower to get flow going, and then you can come up and shoot the mark if you have to. So we'll watch this play out a little more. Does anyone have any questions on this?
I think it's important to note here that any of these 3 boats, any of these boats that come in on port here, because they set up so close to the mark, any of them could have gotten to the same situation that 1523 was, right? I think, sorry, 1523 got a little bit unlucky. And I think they could have also executed better, but this exact thing could have happened to any of these boats that are ducking it, right?
Yeah, so they were kind of got the short straw because the 2 other boats that really lost more, they pushed them in to lose even more. So if you watch the 2 boats coming down that were coming in on pretty close to the ley line, they lost this chunk, and they were lucky to get in because it's only a 28 boat fleet. But then she probably lost the most, some because of inexperience. But the other thing that you see is when she comes around, she then tries to aim above the mark immediately, where she really should have aimed below the mark or even at the mark, got the boat moving forward, and then as she got close to the mark, then start coming up. And you can see the other boats did a little bit better job of that. But the boat that she ducked is all the way, the 3rd boat away from the mark. So she lost that much distance because of how her scenario laid out. So I think the big thing that just we're trying to show here is, you know, if you can set yourself up to come in at, you know, not inside the zone, you're going to be much better off and you never want to be yourself in a position where you're literally going backwards on the lay line, because your turn is always going to be a major problem.
And it's always tough to be in the situation when you're I'd say the hardest thing to judge in a situation is how to accelerate once you're in dirty air, right? Like all of these boats, the wind is curving over their sails and just creating this bad air for her. And it's not usually when you're in dirty air, the answer is get out of it. But there are these situations that you encounter where you have to make the most of dirty air, and the boat just accelerates differently, behaves differently. That can be pretty difficult to judge. But I think the rule of thumb when you're trying to point out when you don't have speed is whether it's on the starting line or after a bad tap.
So, these are some good things to work on tomorrow. We'll have, I'm going to keep the races short, because I want to create these scenarios for you guys for bigger fleets. But I also want you guys to talk to me a little bit too in between races, and not everybody, but I know Willem will, come by and just suggest things, which I appreciate. I'm not trying to say everyone should, but Willem comes by and says, hey, what do you think about this? I know the Imperia guys will say, hey, maybe we should lengthen it or shorten it. So definitely, talk to us. We can't get up to the weather mark to see what's going on. And so we need some input on that. And we do have Morgan out there coaching. So, he'll let us know what's going on as well. But the whole goal for all of this is create all these scenarios. So our 19 boat fleet acts like a bigger fleet at the mark roundings, but we also don't want to be, jamming it in there and making it too close that it's not safe either. So, we had a fairly small fleet today. We had a little more than half of what we're going to have this weekend. But we're 19 boats. And so, please, if no one's really speaking up, which is okay. But shoot me an email, swing by and talk to me. And, right now we're going to get some more video footage this weekend of going on to wing and going off to wing. I think those are important. And it won't be as breezy the rest of the weekend, but still be pretty good. So I think the wing will be a lot more important. And then weather mark, a little more weather mark like we talked about tonight. The gate marks we have talked a lot about. You can see here, and that's where the wing is important. So we will, see some scenarios, and some of this is the scenarios pop up, and then we'll coach about that. So if you have a scenario that that happened and you want to talk about it, let us know. And we're looking forward to another great weekend on the water. And so I think we're just going to wrap up tonight and be ready for tomorrow, and then a Tuesday final. But feel free to shoot me a note on anything, and we will have a great day on the water. So does anyone have any questions, comments, anything right now before we wrap up? One thing, make sure you thank Willem, because Willem's been a great contributor to all of our talks. And, the fact that he's, just willing to spend the time and effort and share, why he's one of the best termers out there is huge. So we'll get some other guys out there as well on some other things, but definitely thank you, Willem.
Happy to help. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
We will see everyone on the water tomorrow, and it should be an awesome day. And get your data to Kristen, and let's have another great day on the water. Great weekend on the water. Thanks, guys.